to read between the lines. Got to read.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of What's Going On. I'm your host, Tom D'Ambra. As always, we are very thankful you take the time from your busy day to view our program. My friends, last night we were watching a replay here at KATV in St. Johnsbury, Vermont. And I was watching it with a friend of mine, watching the program. And he said, you know, Tom, I've been watching your program, our program, for about 6 years now. And he asked me, he said, what is that other flag? And the flag that he's speaking of is the flag that is on my right-hand side. And folks, I said to myself, boy, I guess it's been a while since I reviewed this. So I decided that just real quick to go over this with you again. I actually had one person make a comment to me that they thought this was a flag that I personally fabricated. And not the case at all. This flag is historically very important to our nation. And basically, this flag, the design of it, came from the Sons of Liberty out of Boston, Massachusetts, the vertical flag, the vertical stripes. And it's every nation has a flag of peace, known as a civil flag of peace, and every nation has what's known as the battle flag. Now you may find, and this is every nation in the world, and you may find this hard to believe, but the flag to my right, which everyone is very familiar with, is actually our nation's battle flag. You know, they talk about the stars and bars for the Confederacy. That was their battle flag. They had a civil flag of peace that had the big single star on it with the blue background, okay? So there's a reason why, my friends, you are not familiar with the civil flag of peace. And the reasoning is because we have been in a state of declared war / national emergency since March 9th, 1933, when the corporation USA Incorporated went insolvent to the private for-profit banking corporation called the Federal Reserve. So when you look up on March 9th, 1933, there's a lot of documents. There's Senate Document 43, where they confiscated all the wealth of the country. They confiscated the gold and silver from the people. I believe it was Executive Order 3405, don't hold that to me, that Roosevelt put into play. At the threat of jail time and imprisonment and fines, the American people had to turn in all their personal wealth, gold and silver. The other thing they did, they leaned the public trust, and that's where Senate Document 43 comes in. And this is why we do not own a thing. Nothing. You do not own anything, my friends. The only thing you own is the tax bills that you get. You own them. So the other thing they did when the debt couldn't be settled is the Roosevelt administration, and FDR, by the way, my friends, uncle was on the Federal Reserve Board at this point. But what they did was when they confiscated all the land, all the property, remember Senate Document 43, we read this to you many times, all property is in the state and subordinate to the necessities of the state by law. That is verbatim. But that still didn't satisfy the bankers. So what they did was the only other property that the Roosevelt administration had that they could lien was human resources, you and I. So they bonded us at birth. I know that sounds crazy, but you've heard of the document. It's called a birth certificate. And this what's the word certificate mean? It means it's a negotiable instrument holding value. Certificate. It's a negotiable instrument. I was born 11/10/58. I was bonded by the Midwest Bank Note Company on 11/12/58, creating in law what's called a nom de guerre. All right? So the reason why you have not seen, again, on my right-hand side, the silver flag of peace is because of this declaration of a national emergency / war by the creditor corporation, Federal Reserve, against the insolvent corporation, USA Incorporated. Now you may say, well, Tom, when the hell did our country become a corporation? First of all, I will tell you that the government, as you know it, is made up of just over 35,000 corporations. You can go to Dun & Bradstreet and you can look them all up. And they keep two sets of books, by the way. One set of book you see all the time. That's called the budget. You get to see the liabilities and you get to see the money that's been extracted, the sweat equity that's been extracted from you for your labors. That's what you get to see. What you do not get to see is the other books that are kept by any corporation. And it's called the CAF report. And we've gone over this. And I've already digressed a little too far. But the CAF report is a report of all the assets of each corporation. For instance, I remember about, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago now, we read to you Vermont's CAF report. And I think the state of Vermont at that point had, don't hold this to me, I'm going by memory, I digressed into a subject I wasn't planning on getting into, but I believe they had like $114 million in property. And when I'm talking about property is stocks and physical property, everything. So you don't get to see the assets of, fill in the state of, you don't get to see the assets, you get to see your liability and the money they take from you. You don't get to see the CAF report. They do not want you to even know of the CAF report because you may be asking, hell, if they have all this asset, why the hell am I paying all the taxes I am? So the reason why you don't ever see, and this flag is not taught about, is because if they say to you, hey, here's our silver flag of peace and here's our battle flag, well, then you might begin to thinking about all of this. Do you get my point? So, Scott, I want to thank you for bringing this up to me, and I apologize to the viewing audience. It's been that long that I've actually covered this, and for that I am wrong. Now, let's get into a couple of things before we go on here. This is from Eric Blair, you know as George Orwell. Political language is designed to make lies sound truthful and murder respectable. Very interesting. And it's all wordsmithing. In times of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. That's absolutely true. Now, there are flags that people are more familiar with, but I brought up the date to you, March 9th, 1933. This picture here is taken, this is the congressional floor. Now, this picture here is taken right after World War I. Roughly about 1919, okay? They were voting on this picture is actually when they were voting on the League of Nations, which was turned down, which was great because they couldn't get it done because they couldn't have the United States had to finance it just like we financed the United Nations later. But you'll notice we have our flag here, our battle flag, but you'll also notice that there's nothing in the background with regards to any other symbology that I want to break down for you. Here is a picture, I believe, this is from the 1980s if I remember right, and if you look, we have our battle flag, but look at the two symbols, that icons that we have to the left and right of our battle flag. My friends, that is the international symbol for fascism. You hear what I'm saying to you? They are letting you know the system of government that we are now living under. That is our battle flag, We have been declared the enemy. We are in a state of national emergency / war. And we are under a system of fascism. And what is fascism? Fascism is corporatism. It's when government and corporations merge. The difference, like you hear about the Nazis were fascist. Well, they were. They worked with the corporations. Mussolini said it the best. Fascism, El Duce Mussolini. Fascism is nothing but corporatism. And that's exactly what we're under right now. The difference between the Third Reich and the system we're under today, yes, they're both fascist, but the Third Reich controlled the corporations. Today, the corporations control the government here in this country. And we've seen that for many, many examples. And I want to give you another example, which everyone is, for some reason, a lot of people, everyone knows this. Everyone knows this is a flag of Japan. Well, my friends, this is Japan's civil flag of peace. And they have only flown this flag since after World War II. They were not allowed until quite recently. I think it was the John Warner Defense Authorization Act that allowed Japan to fly this flag. This is their battle flag. Are you with me? Because Japan was disarmed after World War II, they were only allowed to fly their civil flag of peace. I believe it was the John Warner Defense Authorization Act in the 90s, or excuse me, 2004, I apologize, that allowed Japan to once again fly their battle flag. Okay? Now, I want to break something else down for you. This is the Coast Guard flag. And you may notice that this is literally our civil flag of peace with Coast Guard icon on it. So you may ask yourself, now why is it that the Coast Guard is flying our civil flag of peace? And that's because the Coast Guard was a non-defense agency. It was a civil agency. It was non-military. So hence, the Coast Guard flies our civil, the base of their emblem is our civil flag of peace because it is non-military. Okay? I just wanted to break that down with you, but it means a lot, my friends. It means a lot. It lets you know, number one, in wartime or peacetime, whether this ship that you see on the ocean is a ship of commerce, revenue, or pleasure, or a ship of war. It doesn't mean that you're at war with it. It just lets you know it is a vessel of war, for war. The civil flag of peace lets you know it is a civil flag. It is civil. There is no war implementations with it. Very important you understand that. It's also very, very important that you understand the reasons why you do not know of our civil flag of peace, why it is not taught in the indoctrination fool system, because they know what road that's going to take you down and what questions you may ask. Okay, let us continue. Well, I don't know if you saw this. It wasn't on the mainstream media, but once again, J.P. Morgan was fined $920 million by the Justice Department. So what did J.P. Morgan do this time that we had $920 million fine? $920 million fine. What did they do? They were found guilty of controlling and manipulating the gold, silver, platinum, and palladium market from 2008 through 2017. So they got fined millions and they made billions. Did anybody go to prison for this manipulation of all that, of 9 years? No. Now you may be saying to yourself, boy, they must have manipulated the gold and silver market to get it high so they could profit. No, my friends, they didn't. They manipulated the gold and silver market to keep it in the floor, to bring it down. So you would not look at it as an investment. Then you may start, if you invest, you research, you may start investing in the history of gold and silver, or the lack of in our money system today. They don't want you going and flirting with a true intrinsic valued commodity. They want you in paper or the digital world. That's where they want you. They want you in that stock market that you really don't understand, that you have some broker playing with your life savings with. They don't want you to have intrinsic valued commodity in your possession, in your hand, in a free market. I'll tell you right now, my friends, and I'll be very, very conservative with you. If the gold and silver, historically based on inflation and the reduction of the purchasing power of the Federal Reserve note, gold and right now would probably be, and this is people a lot smarter than me in this market, probably be between, from what I read, $7,500 and $10,000 an ounce. What is it? It's about roughly just under $2,000 an ounce. Why is that? Why is it? I mean, let me ask you this. What would you rather have in your pocket? Would you rather have a true dollar, which is gold and silver backing, an intrinsic value commodity? Or would you rather have something in your pocket based on debt and ignorance like you have right now, that is controlled by a private for-profit banking corporation? I think you can answer that question for yourself. So J.P. Morgan, once again, has been found guilty of yet another financial infraction. No one goes to jail. They get fined $920 million for manipulating the gold, silver, palladium, and platinum markets from 2008 to 2017. They paid millions to make billions. Very good. Let us continue. Okay, Bob Woodward come out with his book. I won't read it. I know all about Bob Woodward. Anyway, one of the things, I read some captions from it, and one of the things I found interesting is that former Secretary of Defense General James Mattis and Director of National Intelligence Dan Coats were plotting and spoke together on record about taking collective action to remove President Trump from office. Folks, that's called a coup d'etat. And Mattis is actually quoted as saying, Trump is dangerous. He's unfit to serve. Folks, that is a coup d'etat. Right here. He's not looking out for the benefit of his soldiers, Marines, sailors, airmen, and Coast Guardsmen and the defense of our nations. He was undermining the policies of our president. Really incredible. Now, another person from Health and Human Services Director, Michael Caputo, he said, and this quote verbatim, "You understand that they're going to have to kill me. And unfortunately, I think that's where it's going. When Donald Trump refuses to stand down at the inauguration, the shooting will begin. The drills you've seen are nothing." What's he talking about, the drills? Well, it's the same thing that Bill Gates used that word, drills, didn't he? People in Black Lives Matter, that Patricia Sway, I believe her name is, who said that we are trained Marxists, she called all the rioting what? Drills. Let me continue. The drills you've seen are nothing. If you carry guns, buy ammo, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be hard to get it. Can you imagine that? And let us continue. Government scientists deep in the bowels of the CDC have given up science and become political animals that walk around like they are monks, but in fact practice rotten science. So let me see if I got it right. You've got the director of the Health and Human Services coming out and making a statement like this. You've got books on record saying that there is a coup d'etat at the upper levels against the executive branch in this country. And if you watched any of that dog and pony show debate, it was quite obvious, number one, that civility is leaving our society, and number two, the moderator was completely against President Trump. Whether you like President Trump or not to any degree, up or down, it was quite obvious to everybody on both sides of the spectrum that the moderator was 100% completely biased. People that kept track of things, he interrupted Trump on a 5-to-1 ratio of Biden. I read it, I watched about 15 minutes of it, and then I just the next morning read everything. Okay? So it's quite obvious, my friends, that we are really having a problem with civility. You know, we were talking about it before we went on the air today with you. Go back and watch, say, the debate between that time Vice President Nixon and presidential candidate John F. Kennedy. It was the first really big national televised one. And yeah, they had difference of opinions, but they had respect for each other, and they had civility in the process. Well, just like our school system, just like our society, the very fabric of civility has left our nation. Okay, let us continue. Here's a document that has just been unclassified as of September 29th, 2020. And this is from Ratcliffe. And this official document goes to the Honorable. He's honorable. Isn't that funny how they give themselves these grand titles? Lindsey Graham, the Honorable Lindsey Graham, Chairman of the Committee of the Judiciary, U.S. Senate, from John Ratcliffe. Mr. Chairman Graham, in response to your request for Intelligence Committee information related to the FBI Crossfire Hurricane investigation, and that would be the whole thing about the Russian hoax, my friends, I have declassified the following. In late July of 2016, U.S. intelligence agencies obtained insight into Russian intelligence analysis that the U.S. President candidate Hillary Clinton had approved a campaign to stir up a scandal against U.S. presidential candidate Donald J. Trump by tying him to Putin and the Russians hacking the DNC. Let me read that again. In late July 2016, U.S. intelligence agencies obtained insight into the Russian intelligence analysis that U.S. President candidate Hillary Clinton had approved a campaign plan to stir up a scandal against U.S. presidential candidate Donald Trump by tying him to Putin and the Russians hacking the DNC. The IC does not know the accuracy of this allegation or the extent to which the Russian intelligence analysis may reflect, exaggerate, or even fabricate. According to handwritten notes, former CI Director Brennan subsequently briefed President Obama and other senior national security officials on this intelligence, including the alleged approval by Hillary Rodham Clinton on July 26, 2016, of a proposal from one of her foreign policy advisors to vilify Donald Trump by stirring up a scandal claiming interference by Russian security services. On September 7, 2016, U.S. intelligence officials forwarded an investigative referral to FBI Director James Comey and Deputy Director of Counterintelligence Peter Strzok regarding the U.S. presidential candidate Hillary Clinton approval of a plan concerning U.S. president candidate Donald J. Trump and the Russian hackers hampering U.S. elections as a means, now listen to this, as a means of distracting the American public from her use of private mail server. Respectfully submitted, John Ratcliffe. So what's that tell you? That tells you that, number one, the Russian hoax was exactly that, a hoax. It was fabricated by Hillary Rodham Clinton and one of her foreign policy people that is not named. And we know now that this information was given to and approved by Brennan, Clapper, Comey, Sturks, and Obama. At a cost, my friends, of $31 million to you and I, and 2.5 years of dragging our nation through an entire hoax instead of working to be productive for the American people. And who else would automatically have to be on board with this because of their positions in the intelligence community and so forth? That would be Nadler and Schiff. The judicial panel, Comey, had to meet in front of them this past week about this, and almost 4 dozen times James Comey went on record and said, "I do not recall." Now, as of yesterday, CIA Director Gina Haspel, with authority that she doesn't have, blocked any more declassification of the remaining Russiagate documents. I wonder why. Because it's all tied in to the CIA and the FBI and Hillary Rodham Clinton and the judicial committees and the Obama administration. $31 million, 2.5 years of bull Sierra, taking our country down. Unbelievable. Okay. Let's change gears a little bit, my friends. I am taken back by the amount of people wearing masks. And to me, it shows you where the people are. I would say here in Vermont, 9 out of 10 people are wearing masks. First of all, let me say there is no law that says you have to wear a mask. Senator Joe Benning has come out with that, and law enforcement's come out. There is no law. Second, we know, well, let me just read this to you. The FDA announced that, this is the commissioner of the FDA. You ready for this? The FDA has tests do not validate for accuracy by the FDA or the manufacturer of these masks. Now, if you look at some of these masks, you will see that it actually will tell you it does not stop viruses. So why do they have us wearing masks? Because they want to see how many of you are Pavlov's dogs. They want to see how many of you will not do any critical thinking. They want to see how many of you are intimidated and are sheep, that they can take their Judas goat down to the slaughterhouse. This Judas goat happens to be named Fauci. Folks, let me just continue reading here, because this is really unbelievable. This is the CDC statement on December 5th. Okay, are you ready for this? Disposable medical masks, also known as surgical masks, are loose-fitting devices that were designed to be worn by medical personnel to protect patients' wounds and to protect the wearer against splashes or sprays of bodily fluids. There is limited evidence for their effectiveness in preventing influenza virus, either when worn by the infected person for source control or when worn by the uninfected person to reduce exposure. Our systematic review found no effect of face mask on transmissions of laboratory-controlled influenza. Let me read that again to you. Our systematic review found no, that means zero, effect of face mask on transmission of laboratory-controlled influenza. What did the New England Journal of Medicine say this past May? We know that wearing a mask outside healthcare facilities offers little, if any, protection from viral infection. Public health authorities define a significant exposure to COVID-19 as face-to-face contact within 6 feet with a patient within a symptomatic COVID-19. Ho, let's back up. What does symptomatic mean? Symptomatic means that you have symptoms of this illness. Now we know that 94.4% of people who supposedly have this COVID-19 are asymptomatic. What does that mean? It means they present no signs, no symptoms. A sign is something you observe. A symptom is something a patient will tell you. That's the difference between the two. Now, why is it that 94.4% of the people supposedly who test positive for COVID-19, actually it's coronavirus, which has been with human beings since human beings existed, why is that? That 94.4% of them are asymptomatic. It's because, my friends, 91% of the coronavirus test are testing false positive. And the FDA, I just read to you from their own document, has demonstrated to you that the FDA has not tested them for accuracy, and neither has the manufacturers of these masks. Why is that? Because the FDA made a statement in December, as did the study of the New England Journal of Medicine, that there is no effect on mask against the protection of a virus. Zero. Zero. So why are we wearing masks? Why are we wearing masks? We're wearing masks, my friends, so they can see the percentage of people that'll go along with it. We're wearing masks so they can determine what demographic of people will not go along with it. And of course, these businesses, if they want to remain in business, they have to get their license to be given permission, which would otherwise be unpermissionable, to operate. From who? From the government. From the corporation, state of, fill in the blank. From the town of, city of, fill in the blank. As George Carlin said rather well, they got you by the balls. Hell, they even got half the population thinking you're not essential. And I see these people, oh, thank you, essential workers. You're not essential. We don't need you. Let us continue. The Davos elite in 2017 set to have a global reset. Oh, you remember we spoke about this? Do you remember I read this to you verbatim? How President Xi from China They were going to do away with all these movements globally. They were going to get Donald Trump out of office. Xi was going to help in this. Do you remember this? I read it to you verbatim. Davos Elite in 2017 set to have a global reset. That's where they're taking us, a global reset in their own words. Listen to this. Masking of the masses is based on obedience to despotic politicians, arrogant bureaucrats, fake science, and ignorance of the people. Let me read that again, because they summarize it right here, right now, better than I can. Masking of the masses is based on obedience to despotic politicians, arrogant bureaucrats, fake science, and ignorance of the people. In March, Fauci, the Surgeon General and the CDC director spoke truth that, listen, that masks do not protect you from viruses. I read that to you verbatim. Media campaigns, this is my notes now, they've done this, folks, through media campaigns. They got celebrities out there, virtual signaling. They got corporations, financing and coordination to all bring forth this fake science and fake documentation. To do what? To create an environment of fear and division. And that's what they've done. It gets back to that Hegelian dialectic, doesn't it? You create a crisis, you get the emotional response you want from the people, and you bring in the solution. And who financed all this? We did. When these mad scientists started doing science that was illegal to do here in the United States, what did Fauci do? He transferred 3.7 million of your sweat equity Federal Reserve notes to the Wuhan lab in China so they could finish their task. That's right. We financed it. We created it, and it was finished in Wuhan. It's funny how China is 100% open for business. Isn't that interesting? Why? Because this whole thing was geared, my friends, to take down the nationalist movements that were going on throughout the world. You had the Yellow Jackets in France. You had what was going down in Caledonia, Spain. You had what was going down with Bolsonaro down in Brazil. You had the Trump. You had Brexit. You had it all. You had Hong Kong. You had Taiwan. You had the Quebec movement going on, the Quebec sovereignty movement in Canada. You had real nationalist movement taking place throughout the world. And what happened? It's all shut down, isn't it? And it's interesting now in England, everything gets shut down at 10 o'clock. The whole country of England gets shut down at 10 o'clock. Funny how this coronavirus, COVID-19, has got a stopwatch. Funny how you can get this thing in church, but you can't get it at the abortion clinics. You can get it at the small mom and pop shop. We got to shut that down, but you're not going to get it at Walmart. That's fine. You got Mayor Lightfoot going out and getting her hair done. Pelosi going out and getting her hair done. And Lightfoot comes out and says, well, I'm very particular about my hygiene. What, the rest of the people in Chicago ain't? They're not worried about hygiene? While they're dodging bullets, killing each other? You can't go out and protest. You can't go out and walk your dog without a mask on. You can't sit at your children's junior high school football game without a mask on, without getting arrested and tased for not wearing a face mask. How about the poor woman in California walking her dog without a face mask? They put her in the police put her in a restraining chair and tased her with handcuffs on in a restraining chair. And you know what, folks? I almost played that today. I almost played it today, but it was so disturbing I decided against it. It was that disturbing. You can go riot, burn cities down. You can go take away our heritage and our history. Not a problem. The COVID's not going to spread there. You can go up to police officers and ambush them and gun them down. Not a problem. No COVID potential there. You can't see that this is a hoax. You can't see that this is all part of Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars document. You can't see this. You can't see the Tavistock, all the research we did with the Tavistock Institute many years ago about the psychology of controlling and manipulating societies, that you can't see this? You can't see the shock testing of societies with the document we read, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. You can't see this. You can't see this from the Milgram experience that we broadcast to you many years ago. You can't see this. And if you can see it, when are you going to grow the scannards to not cooperate with it? Folks, every time you wear a mask, you are cooperating in the lie. And when you cooperate with the lie, you give credibility to that lie. Be a leader. Never mind how detrimental, both physically and psychologically, it is to us, particularly children. Do some critical thinking here. Do some research. You know, I've got into you about how our pH window is very narrow. It's 2 decibels of a 14-point scale. And the number one way that we get rid of carbon dioxide is through exhalation. Did you see where they had a person wear a mask for 20 minutes and then they took the bacteria that was on it and they put it in a petri dish and developed the bacteria? Did you see that? It was disgusting. I've seen people now wearing the same mask for months. You know, folks, as someone who studies very hard, and as someone who has been to other parts of the world and seen what happens to people who live in ignorance and apathy and cowardness, it always takes you to one road, and it's tyranny. And they're using that Hegelian dialectic, my friends, crisis reaction solution, to not only bring us down that road of tyranny, but to divide us and to make us eat each other. Our society is becoming nothing but a bunch of East German Stazis calling on each other. Oh, this one's not wearing a mask. This one's having a birthday party for their 11-year-old son. And I use that as an example because I had a dear friend of mine, the whole family, I love them dearly. They had a small outdoor birthday party down in Rhode Island with like 8 people for their 11-year-old son. The neighbors called the lawman on them, and of course the cops came right away. Oh man, got to break this up, man. Look, I'm not bringing you to jail. I told him, you should have went down the road and burned the statue that's down the road. They would have protected you from anyone trying to stop you. Because you wouldn't have got the COVID burning the statue, but boy, you're certainly going to get the COVID having a birthday party outdoors for an 11-year-old boy. You cannot see this. And where do you think they're going to take this? They're going to go as far as, folks, I've had people ask me all the time, oh, you don't think they'll do this? You don't think they'll do that? You don't think they'll go that far, will you? Folks, they're going to go as far as we allow them to go. And this global reset they're talking about is exactly that. And I'm going to bring you back to and I've gotten way off where I was going. Let's talk about the Deagle report. Do you remember I read the Deagle report to you? What was the population? The Deagle report was done by a CIA think tank. I read the whole thing to you, probably about maybe 5-6 years ago. What was the population of the United States going to be by 2025? Do you remember? 128 million. What's the population of the United States right now? 361 million. How are they going to get rid of hundreds of millions of people? They're going to. Our gross domestic product, I think, was like 8, if not, I'm sorry, I think it was 8% of what it was when they wrote this document. You cannot see this. All right, I got to stop and let's get into something else real quick because I'm running out of time once again. Food inflation. The head of the United Nations World Food Program warned, ready for this? His words, not mine. The world is soon facing a famine of biblical proportions. This is David Beasley. Food shortages due to COVID-19. Oh, stop right there. Stop right there. There is no food shortage because of COVID-19. The food shortage is because of the lockdowns that have been implemented by governments, taking their orders from international bankers. That's creating the food shortage. Never mind the weather wars that are going on. Very soon, I'm doing the research now, my friends. Very soon, I'm going to be putting together a show called Act of God Warfare. And Act of God Warfare is not my term, it's their term. And you're going to be shocked at the act of God warfare that's going on in this country. Have you noticed how these fires, who they're all blaming out west, they're blaming it all on what? Oh, global warming, climate change. Isn't it funny, though? Because remember, if you remember the Club of Rome document, to make man the enemy of man and how to get through borders, pollution doesn't recognize borders. Remember that whole thing? I read that to you also. But pollution evidently and fire evidently recognizes international borders because all the fires stop at the United States-Canadian international border. Isn't that interesting? So once you hit that border, there's no more global warming. There's no more climate change, evidently. Even though people are being arrested, all linked and financed by Antifa, George Soros, they're not talking about that. Newsom's coming out and saying, by the way, it's Trump's fault, that this is all global warming and climate change. Let us continue. Food shortages due to COVID-19. No, it's not. The world is facing multiple famines that could result, now listen to this, my friends, in over 300,000 per day people dying from a hunger pandemic. Currently, 821 million, they call them food insecure people in the world. And this is his words, if we don't prepare and act now to secure access, avoid funding shortfalls and disruptions in trade and commerce, the result would be a humanitarian catastrophe in a few short months. My friends, we are eating collectively, we are eating yesterday's food, even though it's harvest time right now throughout North America. We are eating yesterday's food. My friends, I've seen hungry people, real hungry people. And I never talk about it on the show, but in 1978, when I was in the Marine Corps, I witnessed firsthand what happens to a tyrannical, despotic government that people allow to develop and don't stand up to. And it's heart-wrenching, absolutely heart-wrenching. Now, I got to be real quick here. For the month of March, food increases. Corn, this is the month of March. Corn, 12%. Soybeans, 12%. Beets, 16%. Coffee, 27%. Sugar, 22%. Cocoa, 12%. Cotton, 12%. That was in a 30-day period. The World Health Organization predicts over 10 million people will die from malnutrition due to the lockdowns and food chain disruptions. But yet, the CDC survival rate of COVID-19 coronavirus, if you're 0 to 19 years old, your success rate of living is 99.97%. If you're 20 to 49 years old, your survival rate, successive survival rate is 99.98%. If you're 50 to 69 years old, your survival rate is 99.5%. And if you're 70 years old or plus, you're 94.6%. And we all know that the CDC eliminated 94% of the people that they stated originally died from COVID because, my friends, number one, not only Como and others murdering them in the nursing homes, not only the hospitals intubating people and flooding their lungs to get the money from the COVID-19 funding, not only just that, but the people who died from COVID-19 had 2.6 comorbidities. That means they had cancer, diabetes, obesity, whatever. You get it? They not only fabricated this, they not only made us finance it, and it's real. I'm not saying COVID-19 is not real. It's real. But what they did was they expanded the gain of function in the lab. And I'm not saying that they're not going to use it down the road. They may hit us with a second wave that is real. I wouldn't put it past them. My friends, we're in real trouble here. There is a Bolshevik revolution going on that in 1915 and 1919, the technology did not exist to where it is today. And from reading the debate, I think there's one thing that became quite obvious. They actually put it on the table. This election is not going to be smooth. This election is going to be contested. It's going to be confusing. And it's going to create chaos. Ordo ab chao, my friends. Latin. It's in all their papers. Order from chaos. This is where we're heading. Prepare. Get together with your neighbors, your family. Find out who you can trust, who you can't. Get food. And get means to protect your food. Get filters for water, non-electrical, gravity-fed. Act, because the clock is ticking. My friends, we're very thankful you take the time from your busy day to view our program. We always close in asking you to seek truth, obtain knowledge, and manifest kindness to your fellow man. And we always close in reminding you that your government is your responsibility. And we thank you for watching.
Got to read between the lines. Got to read between the lines. Well, the truth is very simple, very hard to find.